And then I can always just go back and cut it and whatnot. But yeah, I guess, should we do a bit of an intro for you, Tooms?
That'll be embarrassing, but you do you.
Well, it's a pretty impressive resume, mate. And I guess for those people that are listening that don't know much about you, which I'll be surprised, because everybody in New Zealand golf should be familiar with who Luke Toomey is. But you're a proud Waikato boy. You represented Waikato from junior golf all the way through to the transition into turning professional. You're in the New Zealand National Academy from 2013 right up to 2016. Had a couple of trips over to the US as an amateur. You won the New Zealand Stroke Play in 2014 and 2016. Took out the interprovincial titles in the mighty Waikato colours in 2014, 2015. Represented New Zealand in 2016 at the Eisenhower Trophy. And then you turned professional in 2017 on the Australasian Tour. And we'll cover, I guess, the rest of the story, I'm sure, as we get into the chat, mate. But some pretty impressive resume and things that you've done early in your career.
What a brown-tonguing introduction that is. My head's about this big now.
Yeah, it's all about the Mutual Appreciation Society, mate, as Jay calls it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for that introduction. It actually, as big as it does make one's head, I do look back and think about those things, and I'm very proud of them. I think ever since I just started to go full-time golf after my first uni, it was very much a goal for me to, I guess, do myself proud and really go about achieving some of the things I set out for myself. And a bunch of those things that you listed there, they were goals for me, especially, being a part of that National Academy and playing Eisenhower and having a chance to play in the Asia Pacific Am and all that sort of thing. Being able to travel to America and play in those summers, it was really cool and it was really good fun. And it does make me proud to be able to say that I did achieve, a bunch of the things I set out to do. So it's pretty cool.
That's cool, mate. And so I guess we've got quite a few questions that came through on Instagram from quite a few fans of yours and friends of mine that are interested in what you do. One of the questions that came through, mate, was I'll put it up on the screen here for everybody as well, but from Matt Lewis, who's a mate of mine, but he's got the absolute bug for golf at the moment. And his question is, what is your earliest memory of golf and when did you fall in love with it?
What a cool question. I've got quite a few memories, like very, very early memories of being exposed to the game. Honestly, my first memory, I think, is playing at Rainbow's End Mini Putt as part of a Ngaruawahia holiday program.
How good.
My dad was place and the used to run a holiday program, and this is obviously for squids. I wasn't a school kid. I would have only been 3 or 4 probably, but just having that association with Dad being in the police, I tagged along anyway. And I think my first memory is playing at the Rainbow's End Mini Putt. It sort of started a bit of an obsession, wanting to play mini putt more often, and the McDonald's that we lived close to had a mini putt. So I was constantly nagging Dad to take me there after kindy. I wasn't interested in the slightest about Happy Meals and eating cheeseburgers. I just wanted to play mini putt. Well, I was probably partial to a chicken nugget as well. I sort of fell in love with it there. And I also remember around the same time we had a family friend that used to that Dad used to work with in the police also, my famous Uncle Norm. And he used to come around and tee up plums from our plum tree in the backyard on top of plastic clothes pegs. And he also cut down an old golf club. It was probably about 30 centimeters long. And I used to just walk along and whack the plums off clothes pegs.
How cool was that?
And then, yeah, it was cool. And then we moved house when I was about 4 or 5. We moved pretty close to a golf course. And Dad took me out to the golf course was Park International, which was sort of 5 minutes out of Hamilton on the Raglan Road. And he took me out there one day to the range, and the local pro, Quentin Demente at the time, came out and asked if I wanted to tag along to some junior Sundays. And the junior program was unbelievably strong. Like, there would have been, I don't know if my memory is accurate, but it felt like there was about 25 or 30 kids there. And we'd do a coaching session in the morning for a couple of hours. And then the golf course had a full 18-hole golf course. They had a big putting green, a massive chipping green, a driving range, and also had a par 3 golf course as well, 9-hole par 3 golf course. And so we'd do the coaching session, and then we'd go out, and QD had made handicaps for us all, to play various competitions, grass, net, Stableford, on these little makeshift handicaps, and we'd play competition on the par 3 course. So that's how I was exposed to the game. I fell in love with it, I think, because I was only about 5 or 6, and all the other kids were sort of intermediate age, that sort of 11, 12 age. And I just think so young, so small, I just got old treatment, enjoyment, but also obviously the standard was so much better than my ability. And so my expectation of what I should be doing was far beyond what I was really capable of, which sort of drove that obsession and improvement. But it also was really, like, I didn't know that I was trying to improve. All I knew is that I bloody loved it. So, that's
cool, because I guess that story I think is something that I've been, obviously know you really well, and we've talked about our childhoods growing up, many times, and that's, I guess, something that a lot of people didn't know about you as well growing up, that you were actually a pretty promising football player, which is actually where we initially met as little mini tackers. I think you were playing for Force 3, which is the Waikato Bay of Plenty region, then I was playing for United Soccer 1, which is the North Harbour region. So you were playing other sports growing up as well, not just golf?
Yeah, mate. I played soccer and cricket, and I'd say, honestly, certainly from that age between 5 and even all the way up to about 15, I was much better at football and cricket than I was at golf. Relative, as far as like technical stuff goes, there was a lot more on paper that I achieved within the other 2 sports than I had in golf. But yeah, that's how we met, mate. I remember you taking some pretty amazing free kicks, and I was in goal, obviously. I certainly couldn't be noused with my massive stature of 5'8" in golf shoes.
A career as a goalkeeper wasn't going to go too far, was it?
No, I don't think so. The one thing I had going for me was that I sprouted probably 2 years faster than everyone else. So I was about this height when I was 12.
I do remember you were quite tall for the age back then. But yeah, so I guess that's all pretty cool. And so I guess quite a few of the questions that came through on Instagram from some people, they kind of want to get to know, I guess, a little bit more about you, the golfer, because I know personally that you've got a lot to offer in terms of the way that you go about your business is as professional as it comes. And one of the questions that I got from a guy called Jeremy Grant, I'll put it up on the screen here, is what are some of the things that you do to prepare your golf from a mental point of view? So I guess for those that are listening, I guess the chat's about to get very golfy. for the golf nerds that are listening, which I imagine is probably most of the audience. Shout out to mum and dad for listening. But yeah, what are some of the things that you do to prepare your golf from the mental aspect of the game?
Yeah, well, another great question. Interestingly, I don't know how much of that mental preparation is strictly golf specific. I feel like your mental fortitude, focus, commitment, courage, self-belief, self-awareness, there's so many things that encompass a mental approach to the game. And I think they're more of a result of your behaviors. And that's because I don't think you can really bullshit your behaviors. Like, for example, like you might say that you've got an amazing work ethic, but if you snooze the alarm every morning, I think you're full of shit.
Yeah, who are you lying to there, right?
Yeah. Or you might say that, you are very meticulous with what you do, but if you barely rinse the dishes before you put them on the rack, again, I think you're full of shit. So
true.
I think first of all, I try to train my self-awareness.
So what do you do for that?
I practice meditation, which
Yeah. What do you use an app for that, or do you just set a timer, or what do you do for that?
Yeah, I've tried everything under the sun, to be fair. But one thing I think I've got better at, especially over the last 12 months, is trying to get a little bit more consistent with that. So I'd say every day. I've probably missed about 25 days over the last 365. But I use Headspace, and I practice Wim Hof breathing. I also use another breathing app, and do another few various techniques that I've learned in some books that I've read and that sort of thing. But I try and make that a daily habit.
Yeah.
And creating awareness and through present-mindedness through Headspace has been really good for me. I must admit, I thought I was pretty self-aware before doing any of this, and the more I learn, probably the less self-aware I sort of believe myself to be. It's amazing how our minds are governed to trick ourselves into thinking that we do the right things and we're on the right path, and you can just always do better. I think. I mean, that's the best part about golf, I think, is that you can shoot 59 and still walk away going, there's so much more to be achieved. And it doesn't necessarily have to be achieved on a scorecard, but internally there's always stuff that you can improve on, and I think that's amazing. Sorry, but to come back to the question, I do think that behavior, you can't look at it as strictly a golf course preparation. And
you start to look at your life holistically across all aspects of your life.
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to look at your behaviors as a whole. Not everyone is certainly not as intense as I am, I think, about their approach to the game. And some people keep it very simple, and that's fine. But for me, if I don't feel like I'm nailing my off-course stuff and my day-to-day life stuff, I find it very hard to perform on the golf course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And does that look different to you, I guess, tournament week versus preparing for a run of events? Say we get home, you're in the mount, you're preparing for a 3 or 4 week stretch. Do those daily habits, are they the same all the way through, or are they different? And do you taper off, or do you scale them up depending on what you've got coming up?
Certainly over the last couple of years, I've really tried to keep things really simple but consistent. We chatted about this the other day.
Yeah, we did.
Early on, when I, or even early on after I turned pro, 4 years ago, I was still very streaky with my approach to training, with my habits in general. I'd have these big fluctuations of going full tip for, I could keep it up for a couple of months at best, and then I'd just crash. And then I'd get kind of lazy, and there'd be 3 or 4 weeks there where I was kind of half in, half out, doing the bare minimum.
Results-wise or effort-wise? You say results-wise or effort-wise in terms of half in, half out? Yep.
Effort-wise, yeah. Ironically, I've had periods where, I grind until I've burnt the candle at every end possible and hit the deck. And kind of bang my head against the wall, feeling like I'm not improving. And then it's when I go, I hope you can swear on this, but you can edit it out if not. But I'll often go, fuck this. I'm over it. I'm sick of putting in this energy and getting nothing in return. And then that's when I play my best.
Yeah, where was that recently? Was it this year or last year? I remember we were traveling together, and as we do, we have yarns all the time about what's going on in our heads and how we're tracking. But I remember, was that last year at Sherwood, or was that this year at Sherwood Park, where you were pretty much over it, and then I think you ended up winning the event. I think it was Sherwood this year. Was that right?
Oh, your memory's probably as good as mine. I can't really remember how I was feeling around Sherwood. It must have been this year because I didn't win it last year.
I think it was off the back of the Manawatu Super Sixes this year. I think you just missed out on the top 24, which you were absolutely headless. I don't think I've ever seen you that wild. Was it the 24 that you missed?
Yeah. I missed the actual 6-hole match play, and I was pretty wound up.
Yeah, I remember that. And most people that know you know that you're pretty cool, calm, and collected. But I could sense that there was some stuff going on in the head there. And I think, from memory, I think you maybe had a few weeks there where you weren't playing as well as you'd like to have. And then I think it got to the Northland run of Pro-Ams where I think it finally clicked for you. I can't remember what you shot, but I remember you went lights out because I remember I was trying to chase you down. But can you remember what you shot, or I guess what can you attest that to in terms of, I guess, giving up control or giving up expectation to allow results to flourish, I guess?
Yeah. It's the secret sauce is somewhere in between putting that huge amount of work in, but then standing on the first tee feeling like the game doesn't owe you anything, and giving into the golf course a little bit, and then accepting, I think, that that can't be transactional either. Like, you can't stand on the first tee going, I'm just going to give into the golf course, but secretly be hoping in the back of your brain that, I hope I also shoot 66. It doesn't work like that.
No.
Like, definitely when I played my best is when I'm like completely removed from outcome.
Yeah, and so I guess to answer Jeremy's question in another vein is what are some of the things that you do specifically to remove, I guess, expectation or a focus on the outcome? Is it just a matter of practicing it through your behaviors, or what do you do?
Oh, that's a good question. I wouldn't say anything directly. For me, it probably goes back to, why are you doing it? Like, it's having that first motivation, which, I mean, this is not my idea. This is very much David Galbraith's. So I'll credit him here. But he, early on when we started working together, the first thing that we laid out were our impossible dream, and our first motivation came before that even, and then your values sort of sat underneath that in order to fuel that first motivation. And that first motivation is, what do you actually love? Do you love shooting 66, and is that who you are, or do you just love golf because there's so much more, to do with it? I
guess it comes back to what you do, isn't it? Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I guess it comes back to why you started in the first place, right? Answering Matt Lewis's question at the beginning.
Yeah.
Would that be fair?
Yeah. Sorry. Got distracted there.
It's partly my fault. For those that don't know, I've just texted Luke saying I think the camera and the audio works better the less that we move around.
Well, I'm going to try and stay like a freeze frame here.
Yeah, no, I think we're still trying to work out, I guess, how to make this as good quality as possible, but bear with us.
That's right. Let's go back to that question. You're good?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. We just froze there for a minute, but we're all good.
Sweet as. I'll go back to that question. Honestly, I probably can't answer that, to be fair. I don't. There's nothing that I train directly in order to practice giving up control, if you like. I think they just have to be lessons learned through life experience. And if someone has an idea, please share it with me, because I'd love to be able to, put that into my training. But certainly, I mean, this is where simply living and just getting amongst it is the best thing that you can do at times, to stop thinking about things and just do, because so much learning comes from the doing. And the biggest gains that I've made have been when I can draw back from some of my experience, and this is something I don't think I'm ever going to master, is giving up control. And something I think I'll always have to work at. But I think the more I put myself in a position where I have that opportunity to learn about that specifically, the better I'll get at it.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think that's probably why all professional golfers, or I guess the ones that love it, love that journey aspect to it. And so I guess if we do, segue into your professional, into the professional part of your life, because I think you've been pro now for 4 or 5 years, I think 4.5 years since 2017. I'll put the question up on the screen here. What have you learned these last 5 years? If you were to go back to Luke Toomey in 2017, on the cusp of, you went to Australasian Q School, start of 2017 or end of 2016, was it?
I went to Aussie Q School in January 2017. I did actually go to Japan Q School in the middle of 2016. Admittedly, almost knowing that I wasn't going to progress all that well, like through that tour, but wanted to get a feel for it. And something I was encouraged to do was just in the deep to my team. Something that I look back now, even though I failed miserably, it really put me. It sort of fast tracked my learning, I think. I was going to a country. I do love Japan. I think it's an awesome country, but I was in a country on my own, having to drive this tiny little car that even my head hit the roof in, and like I couldn't read the road signs. I had no idea where I was going. I couldn't speak the language to anyone really. I knew enough Japanese to basically be nice. And
which you're good at doing.
And order off a menu. But it was so hard, honestly. It was so challenging. But then when I went to Aussie Q School 6 months later, it felt easy. Mm-hmm. The off-course stuff is typically the most difficult. And by the time you stand on the first tee and the gun goes off, you almost feel like that's the holiday.
I guess that's the part that you're familiar with, right? The tournament golf aspect to it.
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest difference between amateur golf and pro golf that no one really talks about as well. It's when I was with the academy, and I was fortunate enough to get sent here, there, and everywhere. That almost feels like that's the fun bit, like you've got someone paying for you to go like and draw on life experience. And you're traveling to all these different parts of the world, and it's amazing. And don't get me wrong, it's something I'm still very grateful to do. Well, obviously not the last 18 months with COVID, but have been up to this point. But like when you're paying your taxes, booking your own flights, staying in hotels, or traveling in countries that don't speak English, like it's tough. And typically by the time you get to the first tee, that seems like the easy bit. Whereas in amateur golf, like the golf was like the challenge was only starting when you got to the first tee.
Yeah.
There's just a lot more to think about, I think, as a golf pro, once you turn pro. And I'd say that's the same in any profession. Like when you're studying at uni, like the work hasn't started. That's a shit. That's going to be a shit analogy.
Well, I guess the only analogy that I could the only, I guess, comparison or the analogy that I could use would be, say, like the PGA traineeship, which obviously has a starting point and an end point. And I think for a lot of people that go through the trainee program, it's quite easy to think that once you finish the traineeship that you're done, that you've done your time, you've got your qualifications, and you don't have to work hard, right? But
yeah,
I think I realized at the end of my traineeship that there's actually the beginning point of the rest of your career, because that's when you actually go and implement all the things that you've learned, which I guess is no different to you playing your amateur golf and trying to get ready for professional golf. It's, once you get there, that's not actually the end point. It's what you do after that and how you, I guess, progress forward. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Cool. So what have you learned these last 5 years? There's obviously been quite a few implications, especially over the last 18 months. We've had, I'd have to say, you're probably one of the unluckiest golfers we've got in terms of, you got to think, you back at the end of start of 2020, you won, was it the Australasian Q School?
Yeah.
So you got your tour card to play the Aussie Tour, and then COVID hit, which meant you couldn't play anywhere last year. You couldn't play in Australia to try and keep your card. Well, you could have, but it was just very, very difficult to do so. A lot of the events ended up getting cancelled. And then earlier this year at the Muriwai Open on the Charles Tour, you had to try and fight for your card back, where I think Golf New Zealand managed to get the Muriwai Open to be an Australasian Q School event, and you managed to, I guess, get your card back there. And then now again, we're in COVID country, so we can't actually get over to Australia. Tournaments are getting cancelled. I guess, how would you say COVID's impacted your golfing career?
Yeah, it's definitely been a spanner in the works, and has made things a little bit more challenging. It's funny you say that, especially about being unlucky. It's probably a story that I try not to tell myself.
Yeah.
It'd be very easy to let that become a part of my identity and think and go, oh well, it was just bad luck that I didn't crack on.
Yeah. So what do you do to shift the narrative then? Because I think that's probably one of the biggest skills in golf, right? Is being able to reframe the situation to be self-supportive.
I'm determined not to let me. Yeah, I think there's plenty to be learned from it, and if anything, it probably just fuels my fire a bit more. And if anything, what it has taught me is that when you do get an opportunity, how can you be, so prepared almost that even if you play bad, you still give yourself a shot. Because I also would say, on the other hand, there's plenty of opportunities I have had that I've missed. And I don't think anyone's ever going to, nail 100% of the chances that they get. That's just not going to happen. But you also have to be a little bit introspective in the sense that, well, I didn't nail this opportunity, and why not? If I think back to my first year as a pro in Aussie, I turned pro, felt pretty good about it. I'd say my work ethic probably slacked off a little bit, and not intentionally. And I probably even told myself then that I was still working hard. I probably felt like I'd cracked it a little bit, to be fair, and I'd achieved a lot, like a lifelong goal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For 15 years, I dreamed about playing on tour, and when I finally got to write golf professional on my immigration ticket, I thought I was pretty cool.
And it is, mate. It is a hell of an achievement.
Yeah, and it's that whole like, what's that quote? It's like, satisfaction is the enemy. It was the enemy of success. No, something like that. Satisfaction is the enemy of development, and I think that was exactly the case for me. I think I lost that motivation probably a little bit because I felt like I'd achieved something, and I certainly had, but I let that get in the way a little bit. Doesn't mean to say that you can't be proud of your achievements, I think, but my work was only half done. Like, really, the goal wasn't to just be a golf pro. It's to get on the PGA Tour. It's to play in majors. It's to win majors. It's to win a Grand Slam. And I'm only really sort of learning that now, and that's probably all because of COVID, I think, and wanting to nail those opportunities that I do get, so that I like playing an Aussie Open in 2017. It's stuff like that is an opportunity, right? You win that. Not only like you're on the European tour, you're mixing it with some of the best players in the world. Louis playing in that golf tournament. Jordan Spieth. Like, I had lunch with Jordan Spieth. Yeah. We that's actually like kind of a cool side story for me. I went into lunch one day, and we have at those events. That's pretty cool. Like, you have your own little like players lounge and stuff that you can go into and mix it with the big wigs of the sport. And you feel like a bit of a princess, to be fair. And I walked in there, and it was pretty full at the time, like packed lunchtime, guys rolling off the course, and there was only like a few seats scattered around. And Jordan had just finished his round, and one of the only spare seats was sort of next to me, and he came on over and said, "Oh, do you mind if I sit here and have lunch?" And I was like, trying to be cool, but I definitely wasn't.
Fanboying pretty hard inside.
I was fanboying so hard, and I was also like, "Man, you're actually so pretty."
It's quite funny how I remember that event. I was over there because we were traveling together. Remember, I pre-queued and missed out. I think you made it through the pre-queue, or were you already in the field?
I didn't end up having to play the pre-queue in the end.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember seeing Jason Day in person, and he just looked like an action figure walking past me in his Nike gear. He just looked exactly like a cardboard cutout. It's quite surreal going from, I guess, watching them play on the TV every week and then seeing them in the flesh. And it is incredible how good they are. I was particularly impressed with Jason Day and his hitting. But yeah, so I guess if we're talking about COVID and I guess how that's affected your career, you obviously haven't been able to go overseas as such, but you've made the most of, I guess, your time here in New Zealand. I think you've had 3 wins last year on the Pro-Am circuit, and then this year you've had how many wins here locally? You probably can't remember. There's been that many.
There's a period from like end of 2019 through to about April. If you include the Pro-Ams, I won like 10 times maybe.
Yeah, I think from memory, I guess when I was doing a little bit of research, a bit of digging on you, I think it started for you, I remember you won Pegasus Open back in 2019. I think we were staying together at the Kilpatrick's house, which seems to be a pretty good omen for you, staying at the Kilpatrick's. And then you won the
Shout
Tauranga
out
Open.
to my Christchurch family, they're awesome.
How good are the Kilpatrick's, eh?
Oh, what a family. I love it there.
Mama G, if you're listening. But yeah, I think you won something ridiculous. Like you won Pegasus, you won Tauranga, and then I think you ended up winning the Rotorua Pro-Am as well. And then I think you won one other Pro-Am. I think you might have had a second place as well. And then I think early into 2020, you ended up winning the Brian Perry from memory. I think you beat me by a couple of shots there. And then I think you ended up winning one or two other Pro-Ams as well. I think you had a stretch of events where you won just about everything, or if you didn't, you finished second. So you're in a pretty rich vein of form. And I think that's where, in terms of being unlucky, I think if your level of skill that I think you were playing at for those weeks could have been transferred onto a tour overseas somewhere, I feel like we'd be in a totally different position. And I think that's something that a lot of us Kiwis, the ones that are trying to, I guess, play overseas, that's, I guess, where we get a little bit affected geographically, is when guys play really well here and get in a rich vein of form, the question is like, where does that lead to, right? And so I guess that's actually quite a decent segue into the next question, which I'll get to, which is from our friend Joe Darcy, who we travelled with out at China a few years ago. He was pretty blunt. Yeah, he thinks pretty highly of you, but yeah, he's been pretty blunt with his question. He wants to know, why haven't you won on the PGA Tour? And which tour do you ultimately want to play on? As he believes that you have the game to compete anywhere. So I guess to answer the first question, mate, why haven't you won on the PGA Tour? Plain and simple.
Well, I'll start by saying thanks, Darcy. That's an amazing compliment. Why haven't I won on the PGA Tour? Honestly, it's because I haven't nailed those opportunities that I have had. But if there's one thing that I will take out of COVID is like I don't think I've ever been hungrier than I am now. And I'll probably, Jay, my coach, is probably sick of me because I'm like almost irritable at this point. I just want to play. I want those opportunities bad. And really give this thing a crack. But yeah, I don't hold any excuses against that. I think I really haven't nailed some of those opportunities that, like, where I've had the chance to progress. I think I got pretty close for that season that I spent up in China. I got off to a cracking start that year. I had 2 runner-up finishes in my first 3 events over there.
What year and what tour was that, Tooms?
So I was playing that year. I got my card. So 2018, I got my card to play on both tours in China, the PGA Tour and the PGA Tour of China. And certainly in the first 6 months of the year, I played better on the CGA, which is aligned with the European Tour. And the winner, but only the winner of that order of merit, gets their European Tour ticket for the following year. And second gets a slap in the face.
Pretty cutthroat.
And so it's pretty cutthroat, man. Yeah, very cutthroat. And I played great, honestly. I got off to a flying start, but unfortunately I was just betted out by a better player. And the 2 events that I finished second in were won by the same player, and that was Charlie Saxon, who's now like fringe PGA Tour.
He's come pretty close, I think, on the Corn Ferry Tour to having his tour card in the States. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we got to the back end of that year that I couldn't catch Charlie. And also that tour was kind of in a bit of a mess. We didn't really know what was going to happen with it for the following year. So I just pulled all my eggs into the PGA Tour of China Basket to make sure I kept my card there, and then I played there the following year. So, yeah, and then I sort of went through a bit of a rough patch, probably the roughest patch of my professional career so far, in that sort of late 2018, early 2019. I struggled for a bit of form, battled a few technical issues, and couldn't get the ball in the hole in the desired amount of shots that I would have liked. And I wouldn't say I was having an identity crisis at all, but it was probably the first time that I'd really been challenged as a human being within my dream and my sport. And so that just took a bit of time, really, to figure out, what is it that one has to do when you're put in that scenario? Do you go back and you try and reinvent the wheel, or you keep chipping away, or what is the answer? I really don't think there is a right answer. And it's probably a kind of a mixture of both, I'd say. A few things that need reinventing, and a few things that you just need to stay consistent with. And it took me a good maybe 3 or 4 months to get on and figure out. And then that's when I came home and struck a bit of form going into the back end of that 2019 year.
Yeah, I remember.
Sorry,
I remember 2019.
Back to that question.
Yep.
To answer Joe's question, I think it's a combination, I think, of nailing some of my internal stuff. Historically, when I have had opportunity, I've kind of talked myself into being out of my depth and almost putting other players on pedestals. Like that, the Jordan Spieth, Jason Day, Louis Oosthuizen scenario is a classic, right? Like, turn up at the Aussie Open. I'm more interested in, what practice drill is Jordan Spieth doing, and how far does Jason Day hit it, and and that's cool. Like, there's everything, and that's the first time I'd really been exposed to real PGA Tour players, and I don't really have any regrets about that, because I really soaked it in, and I loved it. But
I guess that's the golf perv in you, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I am a golf sicko, absolutely a golf sicko. That's probably something, if I'm gonna win on a PGA Tour, and something I will take forward is almost like I feel like I belong now. Like I've had time in that hot seat to sort of blow out that dust and get rid of that fanboy mentality, and I feel like I really can compete if I play half decent, and again, along with that hunger that I've got from COVID, I think I feel ready to go, and step.
I don't know what just happened there, but the sound just went absolutely haywire. But hopefully it comes up all right on the other side once we wrap this thing up. But I guess one question that I've got is, there's a lot of our, I guess, peers or guys that we grew up playing tournaments with as an amateur, or for me anyway, as an amateur, either from Australia or from America, who have now won on the PGA Tour, won on the European Tour, playing in major championships every, whenever, when they come around. So do you draw, I guess, any confidence from that, seeing those guys, like, I guess, Lucas Herbert, Cam Davis winning not so long ago? I think you played a little bit with Min Woo. I never played with Min Woo, but is there enough of those examples, I guess, where you can, I guess, draw a little bit of confidence from those guys?
Yeah, I think I probably haven't thought about it as a confidence thing, but more so like what it has done is continue to fuel that fire. Like, I'm watching some of my closest mates, Dan Hillier included in that group. He's he's probably going to get his European Tour card in the next year or so.
He's looking like it.
Yeah, he's playing some bloody good golf. He's now played in 2 major championships. You know, I could rattle off his whole CV probably, but these are guys that I've competed with a bunch. It just makes me hungry. Like, I feel like I can compete with these guys, and if they can compete with some of the world's best, then so can I. So I definitely, I do draw confidence from that. But equally, I don't want it to, I don't want to blow smoke up my own ass and tell myself that I'm something that I'm not, Like, at the end of the day, I've got to get there, and right now I'm not. So what is it that I have to do to bridge that gap?
Yeah. Yep, and that's a good question. So I guess we'll segue into. I'm pretty keen to dive into that 2019 year, mate, because that was pretty pivotal, I think. I spent quite a bit of time with you towards the middle or latter part of the year. We were traveling together for some of those tournaments, and I remember you were playing up in China, or you had status up in China, and I think at the time, funds were running low. You had trips to go, I guess, try and plan for. You had tournaments to play in, and then you had the fortunate, you had the support of your local club at Tauranga Golf Club to, I guess, get in behind you to kind of get you to your next events. And then, that 2-week stretch for me where you won Pegasus and then, I guess, came home and won the Caris Open as well in front of everybody that, I guess, got behind you. That must be, for me, looking at your career, that's got to be a turning point for sure.
Yeah, I think prior to that, I had almost won on accident, or the times that I had won, I'd kind of won on accident, or won without trying to win, if that makes sense. Whereas there, I was so hungry and desperate to win because of the place that I'd just come from. Like you say, funds running low. They literally couldn't run lower, brother. They were zero.
But how, that's got to be a point in your career, I think, that you can look back on and draw a huge amount of learnings and experience from, to know that when your back's up against it, you know how to dig your way out of it.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a thing for me, to be fair. Every time, like, I'd say that I kind of achieved something, and then I'd say that kind of complacency sort of set in a little bit, and I can kind of ride form for a little while, but then naturally things start to drop off because habits start to drop off, and I kind of, live my way into a bit of a lull, and then I get tired of being in that lull, and the hunger comes back, and the habits change and go again, and then I win again. So that I know that I can win. I know that I can, win's not the right word, but I know that I can play closer to my best when my back's up against it. The key for me now is that I don't think I've really had my back up against it since I hit that form at the back end of 2019. I feel like I've played pretty consistently well for the most part across the last 2 years or so. But the key is not to lose sight of that hunger and keep those standards and habits high and operating at a high level.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm trying to nail at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess bringing it forward to this year, 2021, we played together at Gulf Harbour. And then I think it was the 3rd or 4th round, and I could kind of see that you were close. You were working through some stuff. You were on the verge of playing some really good golf. And then I think the following week we're out at Muriwai, which is where you obviously needed to fight for your tour card to get onto the Aussie tour. And it was almost just like that. When you needed to turn it on, you could. So I guess my question to you is, why the fuck can't you do that every week?
only one person on earth that's been able to turn it on at will, and his name's Tiger Woods.
Yeah, the great T-Dub.
Yeah, that's the magic question, mate. It's so deeply intrinsic. Hey, you almost, it's what I was saying before. You can't really fake your behaviors. You can't bullshit yourself. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried. And yeah, I don't know. I definitely know that when that deep desire and will is in there, I know that for the most part, the body follows. It's like it's an automated thing that I can't control. I know that I can play well when I desperately want to. Desperate's not the right word either. When I'm super connected is probably a better way to describe that. When I'm deeply engaged with what I'm doing and have that deep why, I know that I can play well. But mate, that's the magic question. If I could tap into that deep why, at will, that would be amazing. That'd be the way to do it. But yeah, something I'm still learning.
Yeah, that couldn't be anymore. That couldn't be truer in terms of trying to find that performance when you need it. I guess I've got a quick question, and this can kind of break it up a little bit. But how much, I guess, time do you spend on YouTube each week watching Tiger Woods videos?
This is probably embarrassing, to be fair. Do you know, before this, I went to practice this morning, went and had lunch with my lovely lady, and then I had about 25 minutes to spare before we jumped on here, and so I just flicked on the 2000 Open Championship.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a sick obsession that I've got with Aldrich Woods, but I don't know. I mean, that's who I am, honestly. This is something I talk about with my coach. Something I want to be better at is learning to do better with my time off. As you know, I am a golf perv, and I do find it hard to switch off. And when I'm not playing and practicing, and if I'm not on the golf course physically, I'm watching golf. And it's something I do want to get better at. But equally, I wouldn't want to change it too much because that's who I am. So,
yeah, well, it's funny. I think, do you think there's any correlation? And I've put Tiger Woods' obsession up here as the theme for this part of it, because I think there's two moments for me. Actually, there's so many, I guess, things that you've done here domestically playing in tournaments, whether it's the New Zealand Stroke Plays that you've won or the Charles Tour events that you've won, or coming in clutch for a Waikato in the Interprovincials when you've needed to. I guess from watching so many Tiger Woods videos, do you think there's any, I guess, like subconscious or like some parallels that you could, or experiences you could draw upon from those that you took into those experiences? I guess I think you birdied the 18th hole at St Andrews to beat, was it Duncan Crowdis in the playoff the first year? Was that 2014?
Yes, it was. It wasn't a playoff. It was just regulation.
Regulation.
Yeah, I do. I do think I was maybe one up, so I did have that up my sleeve as well.
Yeah.
So probably not quite as dramatic as that, but I know what you're saying. First of all, I'll start by saying that there's been plenty of opportunities that I've fucked up as well.
Yeah, and that's okay. I guess the ones that I'm talking about is I remember you told me about this because I think I'd only just finished my round, and this is at the 2016 New Zealand Stroke Play at Shirley Golf Club, where I think you had no right to win that golf tournament with about 5 holes to play, and then you ended up making like a 65-foot putt or something on the 17th hole, which I don't know. I think you said it maybe like you'd been a double or triple breaking putt that you ended up making with one hole to play, and then I can't remember what you made on the last hole, but you ended up making that 65-foot putt, I could think, to get into a playoff with John O'Kane, and you're going on to win the event. So I guess it's putts like that, which, I mean, the only other person that I can recall making them would be Tiger Woods when he needed to. Maybe Patrick Cantlay in recent times, but there's that putt, and I guess the match that he had against Brownie down at Invercargill Golf Club in the Interprovincials. Was that the semi-final or final?
Semi-final, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's moments like that. Yeah, Luke Brown, if you're watching, mate. But yeah, I think it's moments like that, which I've fortunately, I guess, been at those events and been able to witness them, which is why I can remember them, where you've just hold the putt at the right time, which, I mean, there's not many other, I guess, players in NZ, at least, that have done that domestically on a multiple number of occasions. And I remember, I think Jay Carter, I remember reading a comment, I think Golf New Zealand at the time posted it up on Facebook, and I remember Jay made a comment saying, it was very stoic, as Jay is, and it was just like, well done, Luke, this is what you trained for, or something real similar, or something like you put in the hours to earn moments like that, which I think are pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just wondering if there's any correlation between all the hours that you've spent watching Tiger Woods and I guess some of the times that you've delivered in the clutch when it needed to.
I do think that you tend to imitate. I mean, imitation is the highest form of compliment, isn't it? So yeah, I guess so. Maybe there's the 3-year-old in my soul somewhere that desperately still wants to be like Tiger Woods. Of course it does. I mean, who doesn't want to be like, what golfer doesn't want to be like Tiger Woods?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe. I probably haven't thought about it at that length. Yeah, I don't know. All I can say is, again, and go, and without repeating myself, when I've been deeply connected, there seems to be a bit of a correlation there with being able to deliver as well. But again, I don't think you can fake that connection. And when I've tried to bullshit that connection, I probably haven't capitalized, just as many times as well. So, yeah.
Connected to what exactly? For those that might not be familiar with that term.
To begin with, I think connection to that moment and being fully present. How badly do you want to hold that 20-footer on the last? And if it's bad enough, you'll probably give yourself a good chance. And then beyond that, a connection to what it means to hold that and the story surrounding it. Does that, align with your identity, the work that's gone before it, the person you want to be after it, the goals that aligns with, playing on the PGA Tour, having that 20-footer to win a major in 10, 15 years' time, whatever it might be. But when all of those things are in a row and that desire matches up, I think that's a pretty good combination. But yeah, that secret sauce is to be able to do that on demand, and I certainly haven't mastered that.
For sure. So I guess we'll go into another question which I have for you, because I'm always interested to hear your take on this. But what do you believe separates the good from the great in this game? Because at the top level, it is such a fine line between keeping your tour card and, say, being a top 50 player in the world.
Good question. Something I probably think about a lot, because I'd say I'm in that good but not great category at current.
Do you think any of it comes down to? Do you think any of it comes down to environment? Sorry, the internet's just playing tricks on us at the minute.
That's right. I think it can influence it, but I don't think it's the determining factor.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, Jaakko Neiman wouldn't be on tour. Johnny Vegas wouldn't be on tour. I mean, these guys come from absolute shitholes, basically. No, to be fair, Jaakko Neiman, you can edit that out if you like. I'll read that. Sorry. These guys come from, less than ideal environments. I've seen some footage of where Jaakko Neiman, the chipping green that he was operating with, and looks like he's pitching off the surface of the moon, like
quite extensive.
And he's like rebounding shots off clubhouses and all sorts of carry on.
Okay.
So no, I don't think you have to come from an amazing environment and facility to play on the PGA Tour.
I guess that's the one thing that kind of grinds me a little bit here is we have the narrative, I think, that we don't have the facilities and we don't have, I guess, the right green spaces to produce world-class players. But I guess when you use examples like that, it kind of puts that, I guess, that view to bed. So I guess for you to carry on in answering the question, what do you think separates the good from the great in this game? You got me there, or did that just freeze on me again?
Deep connectedness, and I don't necessarily think we always like such a popular fad at the moment, I think, is to talk about self-awareness. And I was talking about this with Jay just yesterday. Some of the best players I've met are the most ignorant. Their self-awareness is zero almost, it feels like. But you almost have to go like one way or the other with that. You either need to become like deeply self-aware, or be completely ignorant. And this is only in the context of being a good golfer that we're talking about here. I'd say that if you lack self-awareness and you're completely ignorant, your ability to enjoy life and differentiate you're like hugely at risk. But in the context of simply just being a great golfer, I don't think you need to be self-aware. I think you just have to be deeply connected to getting the ball in the hole and as least shots as possible, and being able to do that at a time that matches your opportunity. And it's pretty much as simple as that, really. Yeah.
That's cool, mate. So we'll wrap it up pretty soon, but we've got a few questions that I'm pretty keen to get through. They're a little bit lighter, I guess. They're not so much, I guess, down the rabbit hole of performance as such, but it's just more, I guess, questions to try and get to know you in a way you think a little bit better, in a lighter way, which is the first question that I've got here is, who's your favorite player to watch right now and why?
Good question.
And it can't be Tiger Woods highlights because he's not playing. Yeah, Dan is a pretty good watch, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's I don't want to blow smoke up his ass too much, but he is very good at golf.
He is good at golf.
And it's just exciting following your own, right? Like following a Kiwi that has the potential to play in and win majors. I think he's good enough to win majors. Is freaking exciting. So he's right up there.
What do you think his biggest asset is as a player?
A physical thing, like just a tangible thing. Like his ball striking is ridiculous. The guy drives the ball insane and is a phenomenal iron player. And typically great strikers of the ball are always going to be there or thereabouts. Certainly good ball strikers have a better chance. I'll leave that at that, actually. Dan is just a phenomenal player, so he's exciting to watch. Min Woo, I enjoy watching. I follow a bit of Min Woo. And he's a great kid as well.
Yeah, he just makes the game look like fun, I reckon, watching him play it.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that makes it look annoyingly easy too.
Yeah, his short game, the amount of times he holds out around the greens is absurd.
Yeah, he's a great player. I like watching Rory always. I think most of the golfing population does. And he's one of those guys that's he's the most what's the words I'm looking for here? He's the worst good player that's ever lived, I think.
You reckon he's underachieved?
Massively. That's easy to say. It's easy to throw stones, isn't it? But I mean, even looking at, like, if you look at strokes gained data, I mean, even then, like, the guy leads tee to green or is in the top 3 nearly every year he's been on tour. And when a guy like that has only won 3 majors? 3 majors, I think he's won. And he's been in contention and however many else. Like, he's one of those guys, you're just like, when is it going to click? You know, like, if he starts playing good, if he really, gets near his potential, even if he plays at like 75% of his potential, he could win just about everything he plays in, I think.
Yeah.
And the guy finishes like, he finishes like top 10 in the FedEx Cup. He stays in the top 10 on the world rankings, even in a bad year. Yep. So it freaks me out. Like, what is this guy going to achieve when he does get it all together? I think he's getting pretty close again, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But if he can sort that flat stick out, or at least be just a bit more consistent with it, it's going to be a joke to watch. And then there's other guys that I'm just like pervy about because they're phenomenal strikers, and Tommy Fleetwood would be right up there. Brooks Koepka would be right up there. DJ's right up there. And these are guys that are certainly not traditional, swingers of the golf club, but their ability to compress the golf ball and make that special sound that not many can make is pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Absolutely, mate. And so I guess that segues nicely into the next question, which would be, just got to find it here, mate. How many times have you broken 60? For those that are listening, I know you've done it a few times, but tell us a bit about those times that you broke 60.
I have broken 63 times.
Because that's just absurd when you really think about it. Trying to explain this to a club golfer or to one of the boys, like a lot of my mates who are just getting into golf, to say that you shot, I guess, less than 60 for 18 holes, that's, for you, it's water off a duck's back. But that's not many hits in 18 holes.
Thank you. I appreciate the compliment. Admittedly, the first one was off Championship Women's Tees at St Andrews Golf Club. And the next 2 were at Tauranga, which, as you know, and for those listening, is barely 6,000 meters. So it's a pretty short walk. So if you have a good driving day, you're pretty much pitching / chipping into nearly every par 4 and hitting most of the par 5s and 2. So I certainly haven't shot 59 at Oakmont. But yeah, I don't know. Again, the first one was kind of an accident, and the next two, I started a bit of a training plan with Jay, and he made up this awesome spreadsheet for me, whereby again, and in line with my Tiger edition, he calculated using Tiger's strokes gain data what his average score was across 25 rounds. And this is strokes gain taken from when he, between the end of 99 and the beginning of 2001. So ending at the 2001 Masters. So probably peak Tiger, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but his scoring average, this golf course was par 71. His scoring average was about 61. His worst 8 rounds averaged about 63. And of the 25 rounds, or however many that was calculated, he broke 60 about 19 times.
That's absurd.
So the idea of doing this was, it's easy to think you're hot shit when you're practicing at a golf course or at a public golf course such as Tauranga, because it's pretty easy to play pretty sloppy but card 65 and go, yeah, things are on the right track, and then I'd go away and play in China and finish 52nd and be like, what the hell?
I thought I was good.
Yeah. What's the difference? And really, there's no difference. You've played exactly the same, but now you're playing on a proper golf course. So the idea was just to hold me more accountable. So I started filling this in, and the second 2 times I shot 59 were pretty much in line with the training that I was doing around trying to shoot 59. Or I certainly give myself the opportunity to do that more frequently. Yeah, so I had a bit of intention around that. So yeah, I mean, I could sit here and say, yeah, amazed, like shot 59, 3 times, I'm the man. But equally, like, you put Tiger Woods on that golf course, and he's shooting 59 every second time he plays. So, yeah.
Mm.
Just to put that into perspective a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, perspective is always good. We've got a question here from Alex Hamilton, who is Hamilton Boy's old boy. Not sure if you're familiar with Alex from the school days early on. Well. Yeah, I thought you did.
Phenomenal tennis player in his own right.
He's a very good tennis player, and he's an absolute golf addict. So one of the questions he had for you, which is, what is the worst shot that you've ever hit and your most embarrassing moment in a tournament? I think I know what the most embarrassing moment might be.
I'll let you go. What is I feel like I might have blocked these out.
Which tournament was it where your pants split midway through the tournament?
This is actually probably more embarrassing now, but I've done that on more than one occasion.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Luke, he's got a very what would you say? You've got a pretty big booty, mate.
I definitely recall doing it in China. Curious. I can't remember where else. Most that we ever hit. Certainly, there's one that springs to mind in practice. I remember it was after one of those summers that we spent in China. summers that we spent in America, and we just played like 6 weeks of golf for however long. I came back, and it was the first time in a while that I had taken any time off, and I had 2 weeks off. And I always tell this to people, but when it comes to my natural ability, I'm absolutely useless at golf. I'm not someone that can go, days in between, pick up a golf club and then, stripe a driver 300 down the middle. I honestly just don't think I'm that talented. And I took 2 weeks off after we came home and rolled up to the Lochiel Golf Club. And I thought, bugger the range, like the golf bug's back and I just want to play.
Yeah.
And so I just went straight to the first tee, pegged up driver and topped a driver about 30 meters.
And this was at the time when you must have been, was this 2014?
This was the second year that I went to America, so this was 2015.
Oh, 2015. You'd just come off a pretty hot stretch over there too.
Yeah.
You were New Zealand number 1 amateur and you just topped at 30 meters.
Yeah, I topped the driver 30 meters and then walked up to my second shot and thought, I better get some heavy artillery out here. So I pulled out 3 wood and topped it again.
Oh.
I didn't even go and pick up that golf ball. I just walked off the first hole, went straight to the range.
Oh, that's classic. Was anybody around watching?
I don't know. I don't think I lifted my head up. I just pretended like no one was there.
One of those ones.
I think it was one of those. Honestly, I can't really remember any super embarrassing moments in golf tournaments, and I wonder if that's just a coping mechanism because I've definitely had some poor shots as a professional.
I think I guess back to, it wasn't really I wouldn't say it was an embarrassing moment, but if you recall the 9th hole this year at the Gulf Harbour Open when we were playing together, and you remember you hit it. Like, I don't know if anybody knows Luke, he doesn't mind getting his kit off. any opportunity at a golf tournament for Toombs to get his kit off, he's all over it. And I think Toombs hit it down the right-hand side of number 9 at Gulf Harbour, which it's a water hazard. And I think because it had been a really dry summer, the lake was out quite far. And so you walked out, took your pants off, took your shoes off, took your socks off, and I think you took your shirt off as well. And you were just wearing your undies and I think your golf hat. And then you grabbed your club and played your shot from the water hazard, which I think there were a few people out watching our group, and I wouldn't say embarrassing, self-inflicted. But yeah, that's one that stands out for me.
Yeah, I have to apologize to the poor 15-year-old girl that we were playing with. I felt bad for her and her parents that had to experience that.
Who was that? Was that Yunsa?
Maybe.
I don't think she knew what was going on.
Yeah, that actually was pretty embarrassing because I didn't even get it out of the hazard.
That's right. I think you ended up holding about a 5-foot putt for bogey.
Yeah, not ideal. Trying to think. I don't know. To answer Alex's question, maybe there's just too many bad shots that I've hit for any to stand out. Embarrassing moments in tournaments. I do think there's obviously those ones that are quite funny. There's also ones that I've actually needed an immense amount of courage to get over. I think.
Okay, like what?
I was in contention. I was in contention in a China tour in Beijing, and can you hear me, mate?
I can hear you now. Sorry, it was just going a bit spastic there for a minute.
Yeah, sweet. So
you're good now.
I'll start again. I was playing in a China Tour event at the Top Wind Golf Club, which is where they played WGC before in Beijing, and I was, I think, 2 back beginning the round, and I had my mate Hayden Beard caddying for me, and all things were going really well. I'd been playing well up to that point, and I could kind of feel, I guess what happens in tournament golf, you sort of, your bad tendencies, creep in over time, and when you don't have time to manage those, they can kind of they progress over the course of a longer period of time, say 4 or 5 weeks or so, and your timing and I'd say lack of pressure, momentum, self-belief, they can all mask that. Confidence takes care of all the things that you don't normally have to think about, I think. And I was kind of riding that wave for a period of time, not really realizing that technically I was probably getting closer and closer to struggling. And on the range that morning, I knew that some of these tendencies had crept in, and potentially now looking back, that was just enough chip in the confidence to go, and then combine that under the pressure of a chance to win on tour, in an event that would have edged me that much closer to that European Tour card. It all just came crashing down, and sort of a bit too much for me to be able to handle, I think. And admittedly, it was a proud moment, because I felt like I carried myself well, in a good spirit. I think one thing is, like, if you are sort of shooting yourself out of a golf tournament, the last thing you want to do is affect the guys that you're playing with, especially if they're in contention. And if you're in those last few groups, they probably are. So in a way, I was immensely proud, because I felt like I did myself proud in that respect, and gave the others a good chance by, not being a dick about it, not being a sad sack on the golf course. I'm pretty sure I carded like 81. Finished outside top 20, and that really took some not soul searching is probably not the right word, but it took me some time to really let that sink in and swallow pride a little bit, and that kind of felt embarrassing in that regard. But again, one of the best things, I think, looking back, that I've experienced in terms of my development moving forward.
Definitely, it's an absolute asset, I think, if you can learn from, I guess, tough experiences like that, but also have a short memory. I think that's probably someone like Dustin Johnson's biggest strength, right? Is to be able to forget what happened last week, or even like last 5 minutes ago.
John Rahm quoted that, I think, before the FedEx finals. He quoted a show that he watches on Netflix. Basically, the analogy was, there's a reason why goldfish are some of the happiest species on Earth, and that's because they have a memory of 10 seconds.
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of alludes to being present in the moment, right? If you're not dwelling on the past, you kind of just be here now and enjoy the moment for what it is, whether it's good or bad. Well, that's a couple of interesting stories there, Toombs. I guess the final question that I have, and you can take this wherever you want to take it, because I'm sure there'll be, I guess, some branches that we can, go down different routes here. But I guess my question to you, and this is something that a lot of people at home may be interested in finding out about you, is you touched on it earlier, but what is your ultimate dream? And by that, I mean, what is the impact that I guess you want to have on not only, the game of golf for you personally, but I guess at a much bigger scale as well here in New Zealand? What is the ultimate dream for you?
Yeah, there's probably two parts or two answers to that question, and one's obviously within.
Say that again, sorry, mate. It just completely
compete and win major championships.
Yeah, sorry, it just cut out again there for me, Tooms. Didn't catch that first part of the question.
Sweet, I'll start that answer again.
Yeah.
There's two parts to answering that question, and the first being like directly within the game. What are my dreams within golf itself? And I think that is, I know. So I would love to play on the PGA Tour. I'd love to play in major championships and win major championships. And the idea of winning the Grand Slam, which is winning each of the four majors. If you had asked me that 6 or 7 years ago, that would have been my only answer to that question. I'd say my identity was hugely wrapped up in that, and it was almost like my life depended on whether I achieved that or not. Those are certainly my first motivations when it comes to golf. That's what gets me out of bed. It's what excites me. It's what drives my my connectedness, which is what I was talking about earlier. And I want desperately to be able to have that opportunity and give myself the chance to achieve that dream. But it certainly doesn't. My life doesn't depend on achieving that. Whether I do or don't, I think the journey towards that is the exciting part. So that's probably that's the first part to that question. The second thing, which is unlike the first in the sense that you can start doing this at any time, or I can start doing this at any time, and that's to inspire the generations to follow me, the same way that Tiger has done for me. And obviously, the more I achieve within the sport, the bigger the platform I have to be able to inspire that next generation. And so they kind of go hand in hand. And one dream drives the other one as well. But equally, I don't have to play on the PGA Tour to be able to inspire another generation. And that's what I love. And that gives me a huge amount of pleasure and satisfaction from, I think, within my soul, if you like. Yeah. Watching kids' faces, frozen again there.
Yeah, sorry, it just froze again there for about probably 5 seconds. But carry on as you were. I think we're good now.
Yeah, seeing young kids with a golf club in hand and a huge grin on their face, the same way that I did when I was growing up, it gives me a huge amount of satisfaction. And that's the amazing thing about this game, I think, is it means so much more, and there's so much to be drawn from it outside of shooting a low score, and so much to be learnt from it. It's such a unique game in that respect. It mirrors your day-to-day life so closely. So if I can kind of impart some of those lessons on generation, I mean, that'd be probably the greatest thing I think I could achieve within the sport.
That's cool, mate. I guess we've kind of covered off pretty much everything that I was keen to get through today, including some of the questions that we've had from, I guess, there are a few that came through, but I've picked out the best ones. Is there anything that you wanted to add to what you've said today? Or I think there'll probably come a point in time going forward, we'll probably have to chop it up again on one of these, and we'll go down a rabbit hole that we're both interested in, if that's something that people want to listen to.
Just on a side note, Siege, we might have to do a few of these, I think, and then chop it all up because we can just talk forever.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the whole point of this. So we talk a lot on the phone, not all the time, but probably every couple of months we have a good chinwag, talk for an hour or two, kind of how we've done it today. But I've always thought when we do chat, like I certainly always take a lot away from what we talk about, always learn some things that I can go away and implement. It's always good to check in and see how you're doing as a person. And I guess that's where the idea for recording these and trying to share them with some people is that hopefully they can listen to what you have to say, because you do have a shitload to offer in terms of wisdom. And I guess that's where, this stemmed from. So hopefully some people can go and implement, or I guess apply some of the learnings into their own life as well, instead of me just keeping them all wrapped up in here, because I think some of the stuff that you have to say should be out in the open with to the public.
Oh, mate, that's an amazing compliment. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's pretty cool to hear. So thanks. There's nothing that sort of directly comes to mind as far as anything that I'd like to share, but other than so many thank yous, I think, and that's obviously none of what I've said today, I'd say is my invention. It's all stuff that I've drawn and learned from other people. I'd say Jay Carter and David Galbraith are two people that have influenced my thinking hugely. And even though I don't, I probably don't communicate with David as much as I should, but he's someone that I admire massively, and someone that, he's one of those people that whenever he is speaking, I'm completely locked in and engaged, because typically what does come out of his mouth is absolute gold. So I have him to thank massively. I'm just very lucky, honestly. We talked about being potentially unlucky before, but I definitely think I'm so lucky. I have so many people that have just been massively supportive of my 10-year-old. My parents, first and foremost. My little brother, Kayla, yourself. And I know those are things that you just can never take for granted, because you certainly can't chase a dream as lofty as some of ours on your own. So I'm just grateful for all those people, really.
That's awesome, mate. And I guess, you mentioned your beautiful fiance, Kayla. Wedding plans coming pretty soon, I hear?
Yeah. I got a bit of a rocket launched up my ass. From my better half. She's absolutely my better half. Yeah, it's coming around a lot quicker. Our end, we all say it, but we're less than 6 months away now from D-Day, from the big day. I'm hugely excited about it, to be fair, mate. As you know, I'm not afraid of the spotlight. I'm just going to try and make sure that I don't take the spotlight away too much from Kayla.
You got to remember, it's her day, mate, not yours.
Absolutely. Maybe the biggest challenge I'll ever have, sharing that D floor. That's very exciting, mate. That's a loving human being. So yeah, can't wait. March 19.
Let's go, baby. All right, we'll wrap it up there, mate. Thanks again for your time, and I'm sure this won't be the last time that we do one of these. So for now, that's episode 1. Thanks for being on, Tooms.
Huge. Thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.